The plan for the Miami Heat, or at least as it's been told, is to create flexibility in cap space, but to potentially sign a big name free agent during the 2026 free agent class. While we've seen players like De'Aaron Fox and Luka Doncic sign extensions, not making them eligible to hit the open market. Well, could there actually be a star on the market in Trae Young? Could he become a free agent? He has not signed an extension to this point, and could Miami potentially be interested in signing Trae Young? Well, before we get into everything surrounding Ice Trae, make sure you are following me over on social media because I am tweeting about the Miami Heat every single day, and if any news or rumors around the NBA impact Miami, I'll have you covered on there first before I make a video. So go give me a follow. We're 33 away from 2,200. Be a massive milestone. Help me out. Let's get there. Follow me today. So the report comes from ESPN's Marc J Spears. He noted that the Hawks have not offered Trae Young an extension at this point in the offseason. And he also made the mention that Trae Young is disappointed that an extension hasn't been offered to this point. So it sounds like Trae would like to extend in Atlanta if it was up to him, but he does want that max slot. Now, when you look at the Atlanta Hawks, it is interesting to see what their plan is. Do they build around Jalen Johnson and Zachary Reese-Sachet, Dyson Daniels? We saw them get aggressive in free agency, signing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, trading for Porzingis, also going after Luke Kennard. Is Trae Young the player they are going to build around, or will they shift that focus to a player like Jalen Johnson? Well, when you look at Trae Young's contract, he has 2 years left, but only one of them guaranteed at $45.9 million. He has a player option for next season, which is the reason why he could opt out if he wanted to and be a free agent in the 2026 class, which is the offseason where Miami is projected to have a lot of cap space. Now, as it currently stands, they are not projected to have a max contract slot, but they could easily create the space to have a slot if they do something with Andrew Wiggins' contract. They are projected to have cap space, but they're not projected to have enough cap space to sign someone to a max free agent slot. Well, if they trade Andrew Wiggins this deadline to get an expiring contract for this year, say they trade Wiggins for a $25 million expiring deal. Well, then they would have enough expiring salary with Highsmith, Fontecchio, Powell, Rozier, and whatever player they traded Wiggins for to then have a max contract slot where they can offer a super max to Trae Young in NBA free agency. So that is how a signing could actually come to fruition if Young doesn't sign an extension and opts out of his contract for next year. And when you look at the next team odds for Trae Young, Miami is inside the top 6. Now, the Orlando Magic are number 1. I don't really know if that is really the most logical destination. I have a hard time believing they would go after Trae Young after moving for Desmond Bane. But the Kings have been rumored for a point guard. The Suns are an interesting team. I don't really see Houston fitting there. I do think Miami could absolutely make sense for Trae Young if he was on the open market. And I'll say this right now. I have a lot of reservations about Trae Young, which we will get to on today's show. But there is one thing that is clear. If you have the cap space and Trae Young is a free agent, you sign him just based off his talent alone. He is such an offensive engine, which we'll look at some of those numbers here. But if you do not have to trade anybody to get him and you could just sign him because you have the space to do that, yeah, you figure out the rest of the roster later because that's the type of point guard and offensive guy that he is. And I just am salivating at a potential Bam Ware pick and roll with Trae Young. And before we look more at his numbers, would you target Trae in free agency if he did not sign an extension and opted out of his contract next year with the Hawks? Type Y for yes or type N for no. It's today's pinned comment, so I want to hear your thoughts. If you hit it with an ad break, scroll down, let it play, and answer the question. I talk so highly of Trae Young's offensive capabilities, and you really just have to look at his numbers to really just get the full picture, right? He is consistently averaging 25 points a night. He is consistently averaging about 10 assists a night. And sure, the efficiency is not great. He's been up and down from beyond the arc, mixing and matching 33, 34% years from 3 and 37, 38% from 3. But he is notorious for hitting big time clutch shots and being able to hit some threes from Steph Curry range. The point is, and I've used this phrase already on today's show, the guy is an offensive engine. He can control your entire offense. He will generate damn near 45 points a game just by himself. And you see it by the averages. He's giving you 25 a night from himself, but then also averaging 10 assists. That's another 20 at minimum, because it could be all 2-pointers. It could be 3-pointers. So you're at least getting 45 points a night with Trae Young in your lineup. And for a team in Miami that has been so offensively starved over the last 5 years, adding Trae Young to your team would instantly just bump up your offensive production just by getting him in your locker room. And when you look at some of his advanced stats on the offensive end, you really just get the full picture on his usage rate and on how much he is used offensively. In terms of creation and his offensive load, he both ranks in the 100th percentile, which means there really isn't anyone who gets used more than Trae Young, and there really isn't a player that creates more for their respective teams than Trae Young. He's an elite passer, 99th percentile in passer rating. And on NBA Crafted, his offensive plus minus is in the 97th percentile. Another addition, he gets to the free throw line, 93rd percentile with an extremely high free throw rate. His shooting quality is in the 90th percentile. And a number that's interesting is his portability in the 78th percentile. What is portability, you might ask? Well, it is your ability to be put from one team to another and still impact it at an efficient rate. So ranking the 78th percentile tells you that he can probably fit on any NBA roster. But the largest benefit that would happen with this Heat organization going forward, if you acquire Trae Young via trade or a signing in 2026 free agency, would be the ability that he has to elevate your front court duo. We are all bullish on the Bam Ware 4-5 combination in the front court. Well, those two would get massive boost offensively running the pick and roll with Trae, because when Trae runs the PNR, they blitz him, because if they don't, he's either walking into a three if there's drop coverage from the big man, he gets a switch and then plays with his food and gets to the spot that he wants to get to, or they blitz him, he pocket passes to the big man, and you can see Ware take it to the rack, Bam hit that little midi, kick it to the corner for another three, or the lobs that could come as well. Like, that play type for Miami would just take a massive rise to the top of the list and top of efficiency in the NBA. So Trae, Bam, Ware pick and rolls would be something that would be a sight to be seen. More coming here, but make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Join the Heat Report today, because we are going to continue to have daily coverage on this basketball team. And as we inch closer and closer to the season getting started in October, we'll be here for live watch parties. So subscribe, turn on notifications so don't miss any content we put out. Now, there is obvious concerns about adding Trae Young to your roster. He is a very small point guard in terms of his frame, not a good wingspan, not a tall guy. And obviously, when you think about his frame, he's very light. So, yeah, he can get bullied at times on the defensive end of the floor, which is where the injuries really, or not the injuries, the concerns come from. When you look at his defensive numbers from a year ago, his defensive rating was 119.4, the second highest of his career. When I say highest, that means second worst of his career. His worst season was actually last year, having a defensive rating of 121 and change. And his crafted defensive plus minus, we looked at it earlier, that his offensive plus minus was in the 97th percentile. He is just as bad defensively as he is good offensively. I don't know if I've ever seen this. The first percentile, which means he is quite literally the worst or among the worst defensive players in the league. And it's not just that his defensive sucks. Sometimes his effort sucks as well, which is the thing that drives me up a wall watching him as an unbiased viewer of the game. I mean, if I was a Hawks fan, I would have crashed out in the play-in game against the Miami Heat. We were in overtime, and Davion Mitchell dominated Trae Young, going for like 9 points himself, locking him up, but just outworking him. I mean, Trae Young would just sit there ball watch defensively, not try to help on the defensive boards. Mitchell missed a three and then ran right by Trae Young to get his own rebound. So there is a little bit of a concern on Trae Young's effort as well as his defensive struggles. And that is the biggest question that we face about potentially adding Young to this team. Would Trae Young and Tyler Herro be able to play together? And if they did play together, would it be able to work? Those are serious questions and concerns that are valid. And I'll address them here in a second. But take advantage of this unbelievable sale today. 56% off this awesome Heat Culture hoodie, usually $120, now available for $53 when you go to chatsports.com/heat sale. That link is in the description and comments of today's video. I've never seen a sale like this. 56% off. Are you kidding? Grab yours now. I'll make it abundantly clear. I do not think that these two, referring to Trae Young and Tyler Herro, can play together whatsoever. It would be an unmitigated disaster watching those two work together defensively. Would it be one of the best offensive backcourts in the entire NBA? It absolutely would. Those two would terrorize opposing defenses with their ability to handle, shoot off the dribble, as well as create for others. But to me, to win in the NBA, you have to have at least some solid defensive players in the backcourt. Just take the Cavaliers, for example, Donovan Mitchell and Garland, who, by the way, would be a better duo than Trae Young and Tyler Herro. But they've struggled defensively. They've never been able to really make it past the second round of the playoffs. And I think those two are better defensively than Trae Young and Tyler Herro, because Mitchell at least competes and has the ability to defend. I don't care if you two are combining for 80 points a game that you create if you're giving up 100. See what I'm talking about here? So if you actually believe that you can acquire Trae Young, whether it be through free agency or whether it be through a trade, I think it would have to be getting rid of Tyler Herro as well. So if you sign Trae Young in free agency, I would trade Tyler Herro in a separate move to complement Trae, Bam, and Ware. And then if you thought about acquiring Trae Young via trade, I would then put Tyler Herro in the trade for Trae Young, because you can't play the two together. Now, you might say it's not worth it for Miami to trade Herro for Trae, and it's like, okay, I understand that if you believe that, but I just don't think you could trade for Trae Young with the idea of playing him next to Herro. And why it makes sense to maybe use Herro in a trade for Trae Young is that they both have 2 years left on their contracts. Herro has both of them guaranteed at 31 this year, 33 next year. We know Herro's extension eligible in October. Trae Young's got this year and then the player option. So in a hypothetical world where you traded Tyler Herro, you would then trade for Trae Young in two separate deals, or trade Herro for Young and then probably extend Trae Young. So the trade idea that I would have if you acquire Trae Young in a trade where you're sending out Tyler Herro is I am not offering any picks, because I think Herro and Trae are in similar enough tiers where you aren't trading a draft capital with it. Maybe you have to add 1 or 2 second-round picks, sure, but I would not trade a first-round pick. I do think Trae Young is a slightly better NBA player than Tyler Herro, but they are in the same tier in my opinion. So I believe Simone Fontecchio might be able to make up the difference. I will be talked into adding 1 second-round pick here for Trae Young, but it's certainly not going to be a first-round pick. So does this trade make sense? Well, from the Hawks' perspective, it might actually make sense from a roster-building perspective. When I mentioned their roster a little bit earlier, well, they have a lot of good pieces around them. Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Porzingis, Onyeka Okongwu. You have guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard. Well, Dyson Daniels' natural position is actually playing the point guard. So maybe you move Dyson Daniels back to the point guard position, a defensive player of the year caliber type of guy, and then you bring in Tyler Herro to play the 2 guard, and you have a starting lineup of Daniels, Herro, Jalen Johnson, Okongwu, and Porzingis, with Risache coming off of the bench. Well, that might be a more well-balanced lineup than what you currently have. And from the Heat's perspective, you don't extend Tyler Herro. You do not pay him $50 million per year. You instead use that contract slot to pay a slightly better offensive guy in Trae Young. Both have defensive concerns. But Trae Young is a better offensive player, and he is certainly a better offensive engine. He's also just simply a better playoff performer, which is another reason why I have Trae Young ahead of Tyler Herro on my NBA list of players. Herro had a better regular season last year in terms of efficiency. It's why he was an all-star. But when you look at their career playoff numbers, it hasn't been pretty for Tyler. Tyler's played in more games, but Trae led the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals as the number one option. Granted, 4 years ago, but he still did it. And he's in his playoff career averaged 26 points a night and 9 assists. I get it, the efficiency isn't great, but Tyler's efficiency is bad too. Only 1% better total, 3% better from beyond the arc, but he's averaging 12 less points a night and 6 assists less per night. The point is, if I were to choose one of these players to lead my team in a playoff game tomorrow, I am choosing Trae Young because Tyler Herro simply has been bad in the playoffs. There's no sugarcoating it. Tyler was so fun to watch in terms of his development and his efficiency in the regular season last year. But you can't just ignore what has happened in the postseason in each of their respected careers, which is why I, once again will say it, Tyler Herro is slightly behind Trae Young if you ranked out NBA players in the league right now. So let me know your thoughts. Which one would you want? If you prefer Tyler Herro on your team, type TH. If you prefer Trae Young on your team, type TY. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think you've been able to gather my thoughts so far, but I would rather have Trae Young. I would. I'm sorry. He makes better. He scores better. I know he has way more volume and his efficiency wasn't as good as Tyler last season. But when you factor in his ability to create every night at least 20 points just from assisting his teammates and finding them, well, that's going to be a massive benefit for Miami. And the fact that he's been more efficient and better in the playoffs as well is another reason. So I would give myself, I'd rather have Trae Young than Tyler Herro. But you can let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. And just make sure you also subscribe to the channel because we're going to continue to bring you daily content here. And if you're still watching, well, you clearly like what we're doing to some degree, subscribe today.